I did not mean to fall apart in front of him. I would made it all the way up the long dusty lane, past the cottonwoods that lined his fence, past the old barn with its peeling red paint, and I held myself together. I held on while the horse beneath me heaved and trembled, while my dress stuck to my skin, and my breath sawed in and out like I would swallowed thorns. But when I slid off that horse and my knees almost gave, I caught myself on the edge of his water trough. The wood was rough against my palms. The coolness of the water lapped at my fingers. I stared down at my reflection, eyes red, hair half fallen from its pins, dust smeared across my forehead, and that was it. The tears came in a rush, hopped and ugly, spilling down my cheeks and dropping into the water. Out they could drown there. I did not hear him come out of the barn. I only heard his boots after he would already stopped a few steps away, heavy, quiet. The kind of quiet that belonged to a man who would learn how not to be heard if he did not want to be. I froze, shoulders shaking, fingers gripping the edge of the trough so hard, my knuckles went white. For a heartbeat, the ranch was all sound. Wind moving through the cottonwoods, the clink and jangle of tack from inside the barn, a horse snorting soft and low. Then I heard him move. He came around the other side of the trough, slow, like he was circling some wounded animal that might bolt. He did not say anything at first, just lowered himself down beside me, his weight creaking the old boards beneath the trough. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him, happed shadowing his eyes, jaw dark with stubble, broad shoulders filling out his worn shirt, a small, pale scar cut through his left eyebrow. I would seen that face from a distance in town before, always apart, always watching, Caleb Hart, the quiet man out on the ridge. "Do not look at me," I choked, swiping at my face. "Please, just pretend you do not see me." He let out a low breath, something between a sigh and a quiet, rough laugh. "Hard to pretend I do not see a woman crying on my land," he said, voice deep and steady, beside my water trough. "I will leave," I whispered. "I just needed to stop. I will go." "I am sorry." My words tangled around a sob. Wood creaked again as he shifted. Then I felt it, his presence settling closer, his arm brushing mine. Not touching, not quite, but near enough that I could feel warmth radiating through the thin fabric of my sleeve. He moved slowly, like every small motion was deliberate, and then he sat all the way down, beside me on the low plank next to the trough. "Hey," he said softly, "look at me." I shook my head. "I cannot." "Yes, you can." There was something in his tone that bypassed the panic in my chest and reached some deep, stubborn part of me. I swallowed, closed my eyes for a moment, then turned my head. His gaze met mine, steady and careful, like he was afraid if he looked too hard, I would shatter. His eyes were a clear, cool gray. Not cold, though, just seeing. I tried to inhale, and it hitched halfway. He tipped his hat back with 2 fingers, the movement unhurried, and his voice dropped to a quiet whisper that somehow filled all the space between us. "Tell me everything. That's simple." No judgment, no impatience, just an invitation. My throat burned. "I cannot stay," I said. Even as my body leaned toward his steadiness, they will come looking. I should not have come here at all. He studied me, his gaze tracing the dust on my dress, the torn hem, the dried smear of blood on my palm, where I would scrape it on a rock. "Who is they?" he asked. I looked back toward the road, heart jumping at every shadow, every movement in the distance. The sun was lowering behind the ridge, throwing long stripes of gold between the fence posts. "Elias Grant," I whispered. The name tasted sour. "And Sheriff Mullen. They are probably already spreading my name around." My face, his jaw tightened. It was the smallest change, but I saw it. A muscle ticking once, then smoothing again. "And why would the sheriff be looking for you, Miss?" "Lena," I said. "Lena Burke." His eyes flickered, like he recognized the name. "Burke, from over near Willow Creek?" I nodded. "My father's small place. Or it was, before Elias decided he wanted it as part of his collection." The word came out bitter. Caleb's eyebrows drew together. "I thought he was your fiancé." "He is." I laughed, the sound brittle. "That is the problem." I stared back down at the water, watching the tears create small rings on the surface. "He wants my father's land, and marrying me is a neat way to get it without paying a fair price," I continued quietly. "But he is not just greedy. He is cruel. And I am not a thing to be traded." I felt Caleb's gaze sharpen. What did he do? The memory rose up fast and hot, like my skin could still feel his grip. "He grabbed me last night," I said, fingers curling tighter on the wood. "We were at the saloon. He would been drinking. I told him in front of everyone that I did not want to set a wedding date yet. He smiled for show, but when we stepped out back, he pushed me against the wall and I swallowed. He said if I embarrassed him again, I would regret it. Said girls from families like mine should be grateful anyone wanted them." I paused, fighting the tremble in my voice. "I slapped him," I admitted, "right across the face." For the first time, something changed in Caleb's eyes, a faint spark beneath the gray. "Good," he murmured. "He squeezed my jaw so hard, I thought he would break it," I continued. "He told me he would make sure my father lost everything if I ran, that the sheriff would be happy to help. Elias has paid for their new jail cells, their shiny sign. They owe him, or think they do." Caleb ran a hand along the edge of the trough, fingertips drawing a line in the damp wood. "So you left," he said. "I waited until my father fell asleep." The memory twisted something in my chest. I took his old bay mare, grabbed a few clothes, some coins, and I rode. I just rode. I did not know where. Not really. I only knew I could not keep breathing if I had to promise myself to that man. I dragged in a breath that felt too big for my lungs. "I thought maybe I could get as far as the next town over," I said, but the mare stumbled on some loose rock near the creek crossing. I walked most of the last mile. When I saw your fence, I remembered people saying you kept to yourself, that you did not take trouble from anyone, that you were not afraid of Sheriff Mullen. So I came here and started crying beside my water trough." He finished for me, a hint of wryness in his tone. Heat flushed my cheeks. "I did not plan that part." "Could have fooled me," he said quietly, seemed timed just to catch my attention. I glanced at him in surprise, and the corner of his mouth twitched, just barely. like he did not smile often, and his face had forgotten how. "I am sorry," I said again. "I will leave. I just needed a breather and some water for the mare." He shook his head once. "You are not going anywhere right now." Fear flared, and I stiffened instinctively. He noticed. His gaze softened, and he lifted his hands, palms outward, like he was facing down a skittish horse. "Easy," he said. "I mean, you are not riding back out alone, half falling off a tired horse, with those men looking for you. That is all." Some tight knot between my ribs loosened. "You do not even know me," I whispered. He studied me for a long moment. The wind caught the brim of his hat, and a few strands of dark hair lifted at his temple. "I know this much," he said. "A woman who rides this far to get away from a man like Elias Grant is not the problem." He pushed himself to his feet and extended a hand to me. "Come on, Lena Burke," he said. "Let us get you inside before the sun goes down." His hand was large and calloused, but his grip was careful. When I slid my fingers into his and stood, my knees wobbled anyway. The mare lifted her head from the trough, water dripping from her muzzle. Caleb ran the soothing hand down her neck as we passed. "She's blown," he murmured. "I will walk her to the barn, get her settled, then see to that scrape on your hand." "I can do that myself," I said automatically. "I am sure you can," he replied. "But you are not going to—" "Not today." We crossed the yard toward the low, simple house tucked close to the barn. The porch boards creaked under our weight. He opened the door and stepped back, letting me go in first. I hesitated on the threshold, listening. The house was quiet. No clatter of dishes, no voices, no laughter. Just the soft tick of cooling wood and the faint smell of coffee and smoke. "Anyone else here?" I asked. "No? Ever?" He paused, then gave a small shrug. "Not in a long while." I stepped inside. The room was plain, but not cold. A wooden table scarred with use, 2 chairs, a narrow bed, pushed against the far wall, with a folded quilt stacked at the end, shelves lined with jars and tins, a cast iron stove. Everything in its place. It felt steady. Caleb gestured to the chair nearest the stove. "Sit," he said. "I will be right back." I sank down, hands twisting together in my lap, as he disappeared back outside. I could hear him in the yard, low words to the horse, the dull thud of hooves on packed earth, the barn door sliding closed. My eyes drifted around the room. On a small shelf above the bed, there was a framed photograph, rare in these parts. A family standing in front of a younger version of this same house. A man and woman, 3 boys. One of the boys was unmistakably Caleb, only with a softer jaw and clear eyes, no scar at his brow. The youngest boy was perched on a fence post, grinning like he would just thought of something wild to do. My chest tightened. "Do not snoop too hard," Caleb said quietly from the doorway. I jumped, flushing. "I am sorry. Your family?" He followed my gaze, jaw working once before he looked away. "Used to be," he said. "It is just me now." The words hung in the air, simple and heavy. "I am sorry," I murmured. He shrugged one shoulder, as if brushing off dust. "Been a long time. No use in poking at ghosts." He crossed the room and knelt beside my chair, setting a small tin and a clean cloth on the table. Gently, he took my injured hand, turning it palm up. "You are shaking," he observed. "I have been riding half the day," I muttered, "and I have not eaten since dawn. And you are scared out of your mind," he added, voice soft. I swallowed and did not deny it. He cleaned the scrape with water from a basin, his touch steady and sure. The sting made me hiss softly. "Sorry," he said. "Almost done." "It is fine," I breathed. "I think I ran out of room for pain about 3 hours ago." The corner of his mouth twitched again. "You talk like that a lot," he asked, "making jokes when you are bleeding." "If I do not, I will cry," I said honestly. "Sometimes prying beside a water trough works too," he said quietly. Heat pricked my eyes again. I blinked hard. He dabbed salve on the scrape and wrapped it with a strip of linen, his fingers lingering just a second longer than necessary, as if he wanted to make sure it would hold. "All right," he said, sitting back. "Now we feed you. You do not have to." "Yes," he cut in gently but firmly. "I do. You came here. That makes you my responsibility for the moment, and I take that seriously." Something in my chest gave a strange little flip at the word responsibility on his tongue. He stood and moved around the small kitchen, pulling down a skillet, cutting slices of bread, cracking eggs into a bowl. He moved with the ease of a man used to doing things himself, sleeves rolled to his forearms roped with toned muscle from years of work. Outside, the sky was shifting from blue to deep orange, shadows growing long across the yard. "What about them?" I asked quietly. "Elias and the sheriff. When they realize I am gone, they will ride out," he said simply, without turning. "They will check your place first, ask questions at the saloon. Somebody will mention seeing a woman riding hard west. They will put 2 and 2 together and remember I live out here. Men like that do not like loose ends." A fresh wave of fear crashed over me. "I am sorry," I whispered. "I did not mean to bring trouble to your doorstep." He set plates on the table, then turned and leaned back against the stove, crossing his arms over his chest, studying me. "Trouble finds me whether I invite it or not," he said. This time at least, it walked up and asked for help instead of a fight. My eyes widened. "Do you always talk like that?" "Only when I am tired," he replied. "Eat." We ate in near silence at first. The eggs were simple, the bread thick and toasted, but my body did not care. It was food and warmth, and the first time all day I would felt something like solidity beneath me. I could feel his gaze moving over me now and then, checking, measuring, not in the calculating way Elias used to, like I was a possession or a prize, but like he was taking stock of how much I had left in me before I fell apart again. "Why do not you like Sheriff Mullen?" I asked finally, pushing a crumb around my plate. "Most folks in town think he is good for business, keeps the saloon fights shorter." Caleb's expression shuddered for a heartbeat. Then he took a slow sip of coffee and set the mug down carefully. "I used to wear a badge," he said. I blinked. "You were a deputy?" "Something like that." His mouth twisted. "I worked under a sheriff in a different town, years back, before your father ever put up a fence post at Willow Creek." "What happened?" He did not answer immediately. His gaze drifted to the photograph again, then to the window, where the last of the daylight was fading from the sky. "We up a new man in charge," he said eventually. "Big promises. Said he would clean up the streets, make the town respectable. Folks believed him. I wanted to believe him. But cleaning up meant deciding whose sins mattered and whose paid better to be ignored. He rubbed a thumb absently over the scar at his brow. We took a job one night, he continued. Supposed to be a simple arrest, a man accused of rustling a few head of cattle from one of the big ranchers. Turns out the rancher was the one stealing from his neighbors, and the man we went after was trying to get some of his own stock back. My heart sank. What did the sheriff do? What he was paid to do, Caleb said flatly. He drew first. We drew after. Shots went wild. My younger brother was with me that night. He stopped. The silence stretched. His hands flexed against his mug. He got caught in the crossfire? I asked softly. Caleb nodded once. A short, sharp movement. Did not make it. His voice had gone hoarse. I was holding a badge and a gun, and I could not stop it. So I quit, walked away, come out here, put a fence around what was left of my life, and promised myself I would stay out of other people's fights. His gaze finally returned to me. Then you showed up, he said, not unkindly. Crying beside my water trough, I swallowed, feeling the weight of his story settle over us. That was not your fault, I said. Your brother, that was the sheriff who lied. The man who paid him does not change who was standing there, he replied. No, I said, but it changes the kind of man you are. He held my gaze for a long moment, something unreadable flickering behind his eyes. And what kind is that? He asked. The kind who left when it was wrong, I said simply. The kind who is feeding a stranger instead of riding her off his land at gunpoint. His jaw relaxed, just a fraction. Eat your bread, Lena, he muttered, as if the attention made him uncomfortable. I smiled despite the fear still twisting in my stomach. The rumors in town said you were unfriendly, I said. That you did not talk to anyone, that you liked your own company too much. And yet here you are, he replied, trusting the town ghost more than the man you were supposed to marry. I trust my gut, I said quickly, then blinked, embarrassed. That sounded rude. He huffed a quiet breath that might have been a laugh. It sounds smart, he said. Your gut brought you here instead of God knows where in the dark. I would say you should keep listening to it. My heart slowed a little, each beat less frantic. Outside, a coyote yicked in the distance. The house seemed to lean into the night, settling deeper into its quiet. What are you going to do with me? I asked, the question tumbling out before I could stop it. He looked at me, really looked, and there was something new in his gaze now, something protective, something that wrapped around my frayed edges and held them gently. For tonight, he said, I am going to put you in my bed and take the chair. My eyes widened. You sleep, he clarified, calm as anything. I will sit by the door. Nobody comes in here without me knowing it. My throat tightened. You would do that for me? I whispered. He tipped his head slightly, as if confused by the question. You are running from a man who would use a sheriff to get what he wants, he said. You do not have to run alone anymore. The words sank into me, deep and warm, like a brand pressed into old, cold fear. Thank you, I said, voice barely audible. He nodded once, like we would make some quiet agreement. Finish eating, he said, and we will talk about what tomorrow holds. Later, cocooned under his quilt, I lay on my side, facing the wall, fully dressed, except for my boots, listening to the low murmur of the house. The fabric smelled faintly of smoke and pine, and something I was already starting to think of as him, a calm, grounded scent that made my shoulders drop. The lamplight was turned down low. I could see his silhouette in the chair by the door, hat resting on his knee, rifle leaning within arm's reach against the wall. "You should sleep," I said softly. "I will," he replied. "You are just going to sit there all night." "I have done worse," he said. "Besides, I rest easier when I know who is on my doorstep." I shifted, the quilt rustling. "Caleb." You believe me?" The question slipped out before I could bite it back. "About Elias? About the sheriff?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I have watched Elias Grant in town," he said finally, "seen how he looks at things that do not belong to him, like they are already his, seen who he buys drinks for, seen how Sheriff Mullen laughs at his jokes, even when nobody else finds them funny." He paused. "I believe you." The relief that washed through me was so sharp it almost hurt. My eyes stung again. "Nobody ever really listened when I tried to talk about him," I whispered. "My father just kept saying we needed the money, that Elias would bring security, that he was a respectable man. Respectable men do not need to threaten women into staying," Caleb said quietly. "They do not need sheriffs to scare their fathers." He shifted in his chair, boots scraping softly against the floor. "You did the right thing, leaving," he added, "even if it feels like you tore something in the process." My throat tightened around a sudden rush of emotion. "I left my father," I whispered. "I left him with that man's anger. I keep thinking you left him with Elias's anger either way," Caleb interrupted gently. "Men like that do not let go. The difference now, you are not standing in front of your father taking all the blows." The room went very still. "I am scared," I admitted. "I know," he said. "I do not know what to do next." "I do," he said. I turned my head on the pillow to look at him. The lamplight caught his eyes, making them look almost silver. "What?" I asked. "We wait until morning," he said. "We see who comes looking. If it is just the two of them, that is one thing. If they bring men, that is another. Either way, we are not walking blind into town, for they set the rules." "We?" I repeated softly. He held my gaze. "You are safe here," he said firmly. "As long as you are under my roof. It is we." Something inside me, something that had been coiled tight for months, loosened, unfurling a little. "That sounds like trouble," I whispered, trying to keep the wobble out of my voice. "Probably," he said, the faintest hint of humor touching his tone. "But I have been alone with my ghosts a long time, Lena. I can take a little trouble that breathes and talks back." A small, shaky laugh escaped me. "Go to sleep," he said, again softer. "I will be right here. Do you ever get tired of being right there?" I asked, eyes drifting closed. "Always between danger and other people?" He was quiet long enough that I thought he might not answer. "Every day," he said at last, "but it is the only place I know how to stand." When sleep finally pulled me under, it was the sound of his steady breathing by the door that anchored my dreams. I woke to the smell of coffee and the soft glow of early morning filtering through the small window. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then the events of the day before crashed back over me, and I bolted upright, heart pounding. The chair by the door was empty, but I could hear movement outside, the rhythmic scrape of a shovel, the murmur of man talking low to a horse. I slipped my boots back on and stepped out onto the porch. The air was cool, edged with the promise of heat later in the day. The sky was a pale blue canvas, streaked with pink. Across the yard, Caleb was in the corral, leading my father's old bay mare in slow circles, checking her gait. He glanced up as I stepped down from the porch, eyes flicking over me, checking, assessing, then relaxing. "Morning," he called. "Morning," I replied, wrapping my arms around myself against the chill. "Did you sleep at all?" "I closed my eyes a few times," he said. "Hard to stop watching that door with a wanted woman on the other side." I winced. "I am not." "Oh, no," he said quickly. "Just teasing." I stared at him. "You tease?" He almost smiled. Not well, apparently. Despite everything, warmth flickered through me. "Any sign of them?" I asked, scanning the road, the tree line. "Nothing yet," he said. "But this not mean they are not heading this way. Eat something. Then I am going to show you a few things." "What things?" "How to hold a gun without shooting your own foot," he said calmly. My stomach flipped. "I have never." "I know," he said. "That is why we start with how not to panic." He finished with the mare and led her to the trough. I watched him move, efficient, unhurried, grounded in the land beneath his boots. I would grown up around men who either shouted at animals or treated them like they were fragile ornament. Caleb's hands were firm and gentle all at once. Inside, he handed me a tin cup of coffee and a biscuit. "Eat while you listen," he said. "We will talk about what happens if they come riding up that hill." "What happens?" I echoed, verse tightening around the cup. "I stand on the porch," he said. "I tell them you are not here." "They will not believe you," I said. "They might," he replied. "Men like Grant do not like to believe someone would flat out lie to their face. Their pride gets in the way, makes them sloppy. And if they decide to look anyway?" I asked. "Then it changes," he said. "I am hoping it does not, but I do not count on hope to keep people safe." "You keep saying that," I murmured. "People safe." He met my gaze. "I could not before," he said quietly. "I did not. I can now." The simple conviction in his voice sent a shiver through me that had nothing to do with the morning chill. "Finish your biscuit," he said, looking away. "Then we go to the edge of the yard. I will teach you how to hold a revolver and how to breathe when you are scared." "I already know how to breathe when I am scared," I said dryly. "You do it very fast." He gave me a look that was almost amused. "Then I will teach you the other way," he said. "The slow way that lets you think." We stood at the far side of the yard, near the fence line, with the open field stretching toward the ridge beyond. Caleb handed me his spare revolver, the metal heavy and unfamiliar in my palm. "First rule," he said, "do not point it at anything you do not intend to shoot." "Like my own foot," I muttered. "Or me," he added, lips twitching. "Do not stand in front of the gun, then," I retorted, surprising myself. He raised a brow. "There she is." "Who?" "The woman who rode up my lane," he said. "Not the one who thought she would break if anyone touched her." A lump formed in my throat. "I still might," I said quietly. "Not today," he answered. "Not while I am here." He stepped behind me, close enough that I could feel the heat of his chest at my back, without him actually touching me. "Hold it with both hands," he instructed, "like this." I tried fumbling a little. The revolver felt like it belonged in someone else's story, not mine. "No," he said gently. "Here." He reached around me, his hands enclosing mine, adjusting my grip. His fingers were warm, calloused, utterly sure of themselves. Contact sent a current up my arms and straight through my chest. "Thumb over thumb," he murmured, voice low near my ear, "not crossed behind the hammer. You do not want to smack yourself when it kicks." I nodded, trying to focus on his words, and not the solid warmth of him all along my back. "Feet about shoulder width," he continued, "knees easy. Do not lock them. You are not trying to be a fence post. You are part of the ground, but you can move." "Part of the ground," I echoed, breath catching as his hand slid to my hip to gently nudge my stance into alignment. "Good," he said. "Now when you are scared, your body wants to do this." He mimicked tight, shallow breathing. "But we are going to do this instead." He inhaled slowly, deliberately, chest expanding against my shoulder blades, then exhaled, just as slowly. I tried to follow. Inhale, exhale. The world sharpened, colors brightening, sounds separating from each other. "You feel that?" he asked. "Yes," I said, surprised. "It helps." "Fear does not have to be in charge," he said. "It can stand beside you and shout while you do what you have to." He stepped back an inch, just enough to give me room. "Pick a knot in that fence post," he said. "Imagine it is something you absolutely have to hit. Then breathe once. Let half the air out and squeeze the trigger. Do not yank. Just let the gun go off while your finger moves." My heart hammered, but my hands felt steadier than I expected. I picked a gray knot in the fence post, focused on the texture, the tiny crack in the center. Inhale, exhale halfway, squeeze. The gun bucked in my hands, the sound loud and shocking, but his instructions still echoed in my head. When the smoke drifted away, there was a fresh mark on the fence, close to the knot. A laugh bubbled out of me, wild and disbelieving. "I hit it," I said. "You did," he agreed. "I hit it," I repeated, turning to look at him. His smile was small but real, softening the lines of his face. "Did not doubt you would," he said. "You do not even know me," I protested, though the words came out lighter this time. "I know you rode out in the dark rather than let fear keep you," he said. "That tells me enough." He took the gun back for a moment, checked it, then handed it to me again. "Again," he said. "This time imagine someone you love standing behind you." My throat tightened. "My father," I whispered. "Good," he said. "Now do not let anyone get through you to him." We practiced until my arms ached and my ears rang faintly. Each shot steadied me in a way I had not expected. It was not about violence. It was about not feeling helpless. At one point, my hands shook so badly I could not line up the sights, and he stepped closer, resting his palm lightly between my shoulder blades. "Breathe," he murmured, in and out. You are not back there. You are here, with me. I focused on the warmth of his touch, the solidity of the ground beneath my boots, the smell of dust and sun-warmed grass. Okay, I breathed. Okay, he echoed. By the time we lowered the gun for the last time, the sun had risen higher, burning off the last of the morning chill. Sweat dampened my hair at my temples, and my hands were red from the grip. How do you feel? He asked. Like my arms might fall off, I said. And like I could maybe stand up to a man I hate for more than 5 seconds before crumbling. His gaze softened. That is a good start, he said. We were walking back toward the house when Caleb stopped suddenly, his body going still. What is it? I whispered. He narrowed his eyes toward the east, where the land rose in a gentle slope toward a line of low hills. Riders, he said. 3 of them, coming fast. My heart lurched. Elias? I asked. Too far to tell yet, he replied, but they are heading straight for the lane. He turned to me, all easy warmth gone, replaced by focused calm. Inside, he said, now. Fear tried to take the reins. My breath wanted to go fast and shallow again. I forced it slow, like he would taught me. What do I do? I asked, voice shaking. These men are not here for a cup of coffee, he said. So you are going to go into the back room. There is a small space between the wardrobe and the wall. You can see the front if you angle the mirror just right, but they cannot see you unless they are looking for you. Stay there until I come get you, or until you hear me say your name the way I just did. Just now? I asked. Calm, he confirmed. If you hear shouting, or if you hear me tell you to run, you go out the window and take the ravine to the creek. Do not look back. You understand? The thought of leaving him to face them alone made my stomach twist. I do not want to run and leave you, I said. His gaze softened, but his tone stayed firm. If it comes to that, you run, he said. You surviving is not negotiable. What about you? I whispered. He gave a small half-smile that did not quite reach his eyes. I have danced with worse, he said. Bolina. I went. Inside the dim bedroom, my fingers fumbled with the window latch before I forced myself to stop. Trust him, I told myself. Trust the man who sat by your door all night. Trust the man who taught you to breathe. I squeezed into the space he would mention, tucking myself between the wardrobe and wall. From there, I could angle the small mirror hung on a nail to catch a sliver of the front yard. I heard them before I saw them. Hoofbeats, muffled at first, then louder, up the lane. The jingle of spurs, a man's harsh laugh. I caught a glimpse in the mirror. 3 riders pulling up in front of the porch. One wore a familiar jacket, fine fabric, too fine for this dust. Elias. My hands started shaking again. I pressed my back against the wall, forcing my breath slow. Caleb stepped out onto the porch, rifle in hand, but angled toward the ground. Morning, Hart, Elias called, annoyingly cheerful. We're looking for a girl. I see 3, Caleb replied, dryly. Despite everything, a tiny flicker of pride warmed my chest. She would be a little more polished than these boys, Elias drawled, nodding at the men beside him. Name of Lena Burke, rode off like the devil was chasing her. You seen her? Caleb leaned against the porch post, casual but not lax. Cannot say I have, he said. What is she done? That is between me and her, Elias replied, and the law. If it is legal business, you do not need her fian shakon, Caleb said calmly. You would be letting the sheriff do the talking. There was a beat of silence. Sheriff's busy in town, Elias said, and I do not take kindly to you implying I cannot ride out after what belongs to me. I saw Caleb's fingers tighten slightly on the rifle. A woman is not property, Grant, he said, voice quiet but edged. I would watch that tongue if I were you. Or what? One of the other men sneered. You couldn't shoot us for asking questions. I am going to ask you to get off my land, Caleb said, on account of you bringing trouble with you wherever you go. And I like my mornings quiet. My pulse hammered. Elias laughed, but there was no humor in it. You always were strange, Hart, he said, sitting out here with your ghosts. I heard about your brother, you know. Shame what happened. A man might think you would want to be on the side of the law after that. Sheriff Mullen could use a steady hand. I have seen how Mullen uses his hands, Caleb replied. I am not interested in being another one of them. Elias's tone sharpened. You really not seen her? He asked. Girl that looks like she has got too much pride for her own good. Dark hair, stubborn mouth, cries pretty when you push her. That last line made my vision blur with fresh tears and rage. There was a heartbeat of stillness. You should leave, Caleb said, and there was no give in his voice now. Before I decide I do not like the way you talk about women on my porch. One of the men shifted in his saddle, hand sliding toward the butt of his gun. Easy, Elias said lightly. We are just having a conversation, are not we, Hart? Conversation's over, Caleb replied. You want to keep hunting. Go check the creek road. Maybe she took that way. But you are done here. My lungs forgot how to work for a second. He was lying for me, staring down a dangerous man and lying without flinching. Elias studied the house, his gaze sweeping over the windows, the barn. If I find out you are hiding her, he drawled, I will come back with papers. Sheriff will say you are harboring a fugitive. Then you would better make sure she has committed a crime before you put that word in your mouth, Caleb said. Their eyes met across the yard, a silent clash of wills. Finally, Elias clicked his tongue and turned his horse. Come on, boys, he said. Hart wants to marry his quiet. Let us leave him to it. They rode off in a cloud of dust, the sound of their hooves receding down the lane. I stayed wedged in my hiding place, muscles trembling, until I heard the porch boards creak again. Lena, Caleb called, voice calm. You can come out now. I stepped out from behind the wardrobe on unsteady legs, the small bedroom feeling suddenly too tight around me. When I reached the main room, Caleb was leaning against the table, hat discarded, rubbing a hand over his face. He looked up as I entered, eyes searching my face. You all right? He asked. I do not know what that means anymore, I said honestly. He huffed, a quiet breath. Fair enough, he said. You are alive. That is a start. You lied for me, I said, my voice trembling. You looked Elias Grant in the eye and lied. Was not that hard? He replied. I have stared down worse men than him. He just has prettier boots. A startled laugh broke out of me, half hysterical. He said he would come back with papers, I reminded him. He might, Caleb said, but that takes time. And he does not like doing things slow. He wants what he wants, now. The fact that he rode away tells me he is not ready to tangle with me on my own land. Yet, I repeated, pacing. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on me. I stopped, gripping the back of a chair. I brought this to you, I whispered. If he comes back with the sheriff, if they say you are harboring me, it will be the first time someone accused me of sheltering anything but strays, he said. Might make me sound almost respectable. This is not funny, I snapped, more from fear than anger. He straightened, eyes sharpening. I am not making light of it, he said. I am telling you I knew what I was doing when I opened my door to you. I am not some boy who does not understand what it means to stand between a woman and the man chasing her. My breath caught. The air between us felt charged, humming. I did not ask you to, I said. But the protest was weak. You did not have to, he replied. Who showed up? That was enough. Silence fell, heavy and thick. I realized I was shaking. Without thinking, I took a step toward him. He mirrored the motion, so closing some of the distance. You are scared, he said softly. Of course I am scared, I whispered. I have never had a man like Elias angry at me before. I have never had a man like Elias angry at me before. I have never had a man like Elias angry at me before. I have never had a man like Elias angry at me before. I have never had a man like Elias angry at me before. I have never had a man like Elias angry at me before. I have never had a man like Elias angry at me before. I have never had a man like Elias angry at me before. I have never had a man like Elias angry at me before. I have never had a man like Elias angry at me before. I have never had a man like Elias angry at me before. What kind of man is that? He asked, eyes locked on mine. The kind I do not understand, I said honestly. The kind who sits up all night by a door for someone he just met. The kind who says we when he has every reason to say you. He swallowed, throat working. I told you, he said quietly, I could not save my brother. That stays with a man. I swore I would not stand by again and watch someone get crushed because men with money said it was fine. He took another step. We were close now, close enough that I could see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, the bold flecks hidden in the gray of his eyes. I am not asking you to be a hero, I said, voice barely above a whisper. I am trying to understand why you are doing this when you could send me away and pretend you never saw me. Because I saw you, he said simply. Crying beside my water trough, because you are stubborn enough to slap a man like Elias and still smart enough to run when you realized he would use the law against you. Because when you talk about your father, your voice breaks in the same place mine does. When I talk about my brother, my eyes filled again. But this time the tears felt different, not just fear. Something else, because, he added, his voice dropping, you looked at me last night like I was something other than the boast the town whispers about. I laughed shakily. You are something other than that. You are the only one who seems sure, he said. I realized suddenly how close we were. If I lifted my hand, I could touch his chest. Feel the steady beat of his heart under my palm. Caleb, I murmured, not sure what I was going to say next. His gaze dropped my mouth for a fraction of a second, then jerked back up. He stepped back, as if pulling himself out of some invisible gravity. "We should plan," he said, voice rougher than before. "Elias is not going to let this go. Sheriff, we cannot hide you here forever and hope they forget. Men like that do not forget." They tightened their grip. The loss of his nearness felt like something physical. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to pull my scattered thoughts back together. "What do we do?" I asked. He took a steadying breath. "You said Elias has his hand in everything," he said. "The sheriff, the saloon, land deals. That makes him feel invincible. But it also means he has written things down, left trails. I've seen his ledgers," I said slowly. "I used to help his sister at the mercantile. He does not hide his deals as well as he thinks. He is always scribbling numbers, notes. Did you take anything?" Caleb asked. I hesitated, then reached into the inside pocket of my dress and pulled out the small, worn leather book I would tuck there in the dark hours before dawn. "I took this," I said. "It was in his desk. He always kept it close. I did not even know I had the guts until my hand closed around it." Caleb's eyes widened slightly. "Can I see?" he asked. I handed it to him. Our fingers brushed, and a little spark jumped between us, quick and hot. He flipped through the pages, his brow furrowing. "Payments," he murmured. "Names, Sheriff Mullen, saloon owner, older ranchers, collection services." His jaw tightened. "This is more than just one angry man and a scared woman. This is leverage." "I was just trying to hurt him back," I said quietly. "Take something that mattered." I did not even know what I would grabbed. I just grabbed. "You grabbed something powerful," Caleb said. "Men like Elias will burn a town to the ground to keep books like this from landing in the wrong hands." "Do we have the wrong hands?" I asked. His gaze met mine, unwavering. "We have the right ones," he said. "We just need help." "From who?" I asked, incredulous. "The sheriff is in his pocket." "Not all law wears local badges," he replied. "There is a federal marshal who passes through these parts. Name of Avery. He has been keeping an eye on the border towns. Last time I saw him, he said if I ever saw something that stank bad enough, I should send word." "You know a marshal?" I stared at him. "Of course you do." He almost smiled. "I told you." "I used to wear a badge. So, what is the plan?" I asked, fear and adrenaline tangling inside me. "We get this ledger to Avery," he said, "and we keep you breathing until he can do something with it." The plan sounded simple when Caleb said it. Simple, but not easy. We would wait until night, he decided. Then he would ride out to the relay station 2 towns over, where he knew a telegraph operator who minded his own business, but not his morals. He would send a coded wire to Marshal Avery, asking him to meet at an abandoned line shack halfway between here and town. You are not going alone, I said immediately. Yes, I am, he replied. You stay here. You know the hiding spots now. You know how to hold a gun. You will be safer here than riding out in the dark with me. I will not be safer, I argued. I will just be alone and scared while you are out there. I will be fine, he said. You cannot promise that, I shot back. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His jaw worked. That is not fair, he muttered. Life stopped being fair when Elias put a price on my fear, I said. I am not letting you do this all by yourself. If something happens to you out there, and I am just sitting here in your quilt, I will never forgive myself. We went back and forth, until finally he exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. You are stubborn, he said. You like that, remember? I retorted. He gave me a look that said I would use his own words against him, and he knew it. Fine, he said. You ride with me, but you stay close. You listen when I say stop. And if I tell you to run, you run. Only if you are right behind me, I countered. His eyes met mine, something fierce and reluctant blooming there. If I can be, he said. Clouds began to gather by late afternoon, piling up dark and heavy over the ridge. Storm's coming, Caleb observed, standing on the porch, hat tipped back as he studied the sky. Thunder rumbled far off, grazing the horizon. Will that help or hurt? I asked. Both, he said. Rain will cover tracks and sound, but it will make the trail harder, visibility worse. So we bow anyway, I said. We go anyway, he agreed. We saddled the horses as the first drops began to fall, big and cold, dotting the dust. The air smelled of rain and electricity. Caleb tightened the cinch on my mare, then stepped close, his hands resting lightly on my waist as he helped me up. The touch was practical, necessary, but my body did not care about the reason. Heat bloomed where his hands had been, lingering even after he stepped away. Stay just behind my left shoulder, he said, swinging into his own saddle with the easy grace of a man born to it. If we get separated, follow the creek. It runs alongside the old stage road most of the way to the relay station. I thought was staying close, I said. You are, he replied. That is for if something goes wrong. The storm rolled in faster than I expected. By the time we were half a mile from the ranch, the sky had turned an angry gray, and the rain came down harder, needling my skin. Lightning flashed, jagged and bright. Thunder boomed overhead, making the horses toss their heads. Steady, girl, I murmured to my mare, trying to sound calmer than I felt. Caleb glanced back and gave me a small nod, as if to say, You are doing fine. We reached the fork in the trail where one path led towards town, and the other swung wide, skirting the low hills. Stay sharp, he said, raising his voice over the rain. If Elias had someone watching the roads, they will be near here. Do you really think? A shot cracked the air, sharp and unmistakable, kicking up mud inches from Caleb's boot. Everything exploded into chaos. Down, he shouted. I threw myself forward, over my mare's neck as she reared, screaming. Another shot rang out, then another. Shapes moved on the ridge above, dark figures against the stormy sky. Ambush, Caleb snarled. He was faster than I thought. "Caleb," I cried, clinging to the saddle horn as the mare danced. He swung off his horse with a practiced motion, using the animal as partial cover, drawing his rifle in one smooth move. "Off!" he yelled at me. "Now!" I slid to the muddy ground, nearly losing my footing. He grabbed my arm, pulling me behind a boulder as another bullet chewed bark off a nearby tree. "Three of them," he said between gritted teeth, peeking round the rock. "Maybe four. Grant's not the patient type. He must have left town as soon as he realized where I would send word from." My heart hammered so hard, I could feel it in my fingertips. "What do we do?" I gasped. "We hold them here," he said. "We do not let them take you." As if to answer him, a voice called out through the rain, mocking and familiar. "Caleb Hart," Elias shouted from somewhere on the ridge. "You should have taken my offer when I was being polite. Your idea of polite, and mine do not match, Grant," Caleb yelled back. "You bring the sheriff with you, or are you playing outlaw all on your own today?" Another shot answered, smacking into the boulder above us and showering us with tiny stones. "I do not see a badge in this storm, Hart," Elias called. "Just 3 boys, and a man who does not know when to let things go." Caleb's jaw clenched. He turned to me, rain dripping from the brim of his hat, eyes fierce. "You remember what I taught you?" he asked. "Yes," I whispered. "Both hands. Breathe. Do not yank the trigger." "Good," he said. He pressed the revolver into my palm. "Stay low. If anyone gets past me, you do not hesitate. You understand?" Fear surged up, choking. "I cannot." "Yes, you can," he said firmly. "Listen to me, Lena, who have every right to stand between yourself and the man who wants to own you. You have every right to go home to your father someday and not be dragged back. My vision blurred with rain and tears. Will you be in front of me?" I asked. He gave me a tight, crooked smile. "I will always be in front of you if I can," he said. Then he moved. He leaned around the boulder and fired, the recoil pushing into his shoulder. A cry rang out from the ridge. "Nothing, men! Hit!" The others shouted, their silhouettes shifting. The storm raged overhead, thunder crashing like artillery. "Circle left," Elias bellowed. "Flush them out." I saw a shadow break away, trying to come around our position. Fear rose, and I forced it down with the breathing he would drilled into me. Inhale, exhale halfway, squeeze. The figure stumbled as my shot hit the ground near his boots, forcing him to dive for cover instead of advancing. "Nice," Caleb muttered, eyes flicking back to me for half a second. Pride burned in that glance, steady and sure. "You are teaching me too fast," I said through my teeth. "We do not get to choose the pace sometimes," he replied, firing again. The firefight felt endless and quick all at once. Flashes of light, thunder, shouts, the acrid smell of gunpowder mixing with rain. Then, in a moment that seemed to stretch out forever, something went wrong. Caleb leaned out to get a better angle on Elias's position, and a shot came from a different direction, a fourth man we had not seen, hidden behind a clump of scrub. The bullet tore through Caleb's upper arm, jerking him back with a strangled sound. "Caleb!" I screamed, catching his shoulder as he stumbled. Blood blossomed on his sleeve, vivid against the wet fabric. "I am fine," he gritted out, teeth clenched. "Just a graze." "It is bleeding," I said, panic rising. That is not. His hand shot up, fingers closing round my wrist, grounding me. Eyes on me, he said, voice low and firm despite the pain. I am here. I am not going anywhere. We are going to end this. You hear me? They are going to kill you, I choked. No, he said, the word a quiet, solid wall. Because you are here, and I promised you do not have to run alone anymore. Something in me hardened then, like cooled steel. Another figure broke cover, rushing downhill with a shout, gun drawn. Without thinking, I stepped out from behind the boulder, just enough to see, just enough to aim. My hands steadied. The storm seemed to recede for a heartbeat. Inhale, exhale halfway. Squeeze. The shot rang out, echoing across the ridge. The man jerked, his gun flying from his hand as he tumbled into the mud with a cry, clutching his shoulder. Enough, I shouted, voice raw. Elias, you call them off. Now. For a moment, there was silence except for the rain. Then a slow clap drifted down from the ridge. Well, well, Elias called. There is the spirit I liked in you, Lena. Shame. You had to turn it against me. This ends, I screamed up at him. You let me go, and you stay away from my father. You stay away from Caleb. Or I swear I will put a bullet somewhere you cannot shrug off. My voice shook, but the words were true. Caleb stared at me, something like awe in his eyes. Elias laughed. You think you can threaten me? He shouted. Little girl with a shaky gun. Look steady from here, Caleb called back, even as blood dripped from his arm. 3 of your men already met it. Does she really need to prove herself on you too? There is a pause. I imagined Elias weighing his chances. Wet ground, wounded men. A man with a rifle who did not seem to know how to surrender, and the storm closing around us. You have not heard the last of this, he yelled finally. This is not over. Then maybe next time bring a badge instead of a pack of cowards. Caleb shot back. Another shot cracked, wide and high, more frustration than aim. Then the shapes on the ridge began to pull back, leading their wounded, disappearing into the storm. We stayed crouched behind the boulder until we could no longer hear hoofbeats. Only then did my knees give out. I slid down the side of the rock, landing hard in the mud. My whole body shook, adrenaline crashing out of my system. Caleb dropped beside me, leaning his back against the stone, breathing hard. His right sleeve was soaked with blood, the fabric clinging to his arm. Let me see, I said, reaching for him. You do not have to. I know I do not have to, I snapped, tears mixing with rain on my cheeks. I want to. That seemed to strike him silent. I carefully peeled back the torn cloth, wincing at the jagged wound. It was, as he would said, mostly a graze, but it had cut deep enough to bleed heavily. It needs cleaning, I said, bandaging. You cannot ride far like this. Good thing home's closer than the relay station, he replied, grimacing as I pressed my hand over the wound to stem the flow. Thunder rolled softer now, moving away. The rain eased to a steady drizzle. For a long moment, we sat there, breathing, heads tipped back against the rock. You were amazing, he said quietly. I let out a breathless, incredulous laugh. I was terrified, I said. My hands are still shaking. They shook, but they did what they had to, he said. You stood up to him. You stood in front of yourself. I only did it because you were bleeding, I admitted, voice raw. Something about seeing you fall. His gaze shifted to me, searching. What about it? He asked. I realized, I said slowly, the words tumbling out without filter, that I could not lose you too. His breath caught, just slightly. Too, he repeated. I lost my mother when I was young, I said, and then I watched my father shrink each year under the weight of bills and drought, and men like Elias offering shiny solutions. I have felt like I have been losing him inch by inch for years. When I rode up your lane, I did not know you. You were just the quiet man on the ridge. I swallowed. But last night, when you sat by that door, and this morning when you taught me to breathe, and just now when you stepped in front of bullets for me like it is the most natural thing in the world, you stopped being the quiet man. I forced myself to meet his eyes. You became someone I need in my corner, I whispered. Someone I do not know how to lose. The rain pattered softly around us, a distant drumbeat. Caleb's jaw clenched and relaxed. He looked like a man standing on a cliff, staring down at something he would sworn he would never jump into again. I have spent a long time making sure I did not need anyone, he said. Told myself needing meant losing. That the only safe way to live was behind walls, with my land and my ghosts and nothing else. He exhaled slowly. But last night, listening to you breathe in your sleep from that chair, I realized if anyone came through that door, I would fight like hell to keep them from you. Not because you were under my roof, because you were you. My heart stuttered. Me, I echoed. You, he said firmly. The woman who still makes jokes when her hands are bleeding. The woman who stole a ledger from a dangerous man because she was desperate and brave, and could not just sit still and take it. The woman who looked at me like I was more than the worst thing that ever happened to me. He shifted, turning more fully toward me. Lena, he said, my name a low, reverent thing in his mouth. I'm trying very hard to be the man who keeps you safe, because it is right, not because I am falling for you. My breath caught on that word. Trying, I repeated. Not succeeding, he corrected softly. I do not know when it happened. Somewhere between you crying beside my water trough and you standing in the rain shouting up a ridge at the man chasing you. But it happened. The world seemed to quiet, the storm receding into the background hum of my heartbeat. I reached up with my uninjured hand, fingers trembling, and touched his cheek just beneath the scar at his brow. He closed his eyes at the contact, leaning into it like a man starved for warmth. You do not have to keep trying not to, I whispered. I do not want you to. His eyes opened, and whatever walls he would been holding on to crumbled in that look. Lena, he murmured again. Caleb, I replied. Our foreheads touched first, a soft press that made my chest ache in a way that had nothing to do with fear. His breath mingled with mine, warm and steady, grounding me. Then his hand came up, calloused thumb tracing the line of my jaw, tilting my face toward his. Tell me to stop, he said quietly, giving me every chance. I shook my head, the movement small but sure. Do not stop, I whispered. Not this. His lips brushed mine, tentative at first, as if he could not quite believe this was real. The kiss was gentle, careful, no rush, no demand, just a question he was finally brave enough to ask. I answered. I leaned into him, fingers sliding into his damp hair, breathing in the scent of rain and gunpowder, and the man who would chosen to stand between me and the bullets. The world narrowed to the warmth of his mouth and mine, the steady weight of his hand at the nape of my neck, the soft, shuddering exhale that escaped him, like he would been holding that breath for years. When we finally broke apart, foreheads still touching, I was crying again, but these tears felt different, less like breaking, more like mending. "You are safe," he whispered, his thumb catching one tear at the corner of my eye. "You hear me? You are safe. I will see to it." "We face it together now," I said, echoing his words from the night before. "You and me." His smile was small and full of something that looked a lot like hope. "Together," he agreed. Marshal Avery arrived 3 days later. By then, Caleb's arm was stitched and wrapped, thanks to my shaking hands and his calm instructions by lamplight. The storm had passed, leaving the land smelling new. Elias and his men had not come back up the lane, but the tension in the air stayed thick as summer heat. We heard Avery before we saw him, the steady, unhurried rhythm of his horse, the faint jingle of gear. No rush, no bravado. Just a man used to walking into dangerous rooms, like he had all the time in the world. Caleb stepped onto the porch, me at his side. His hand brushed mine once. Silent question. I laced my fingers with his. Answer clear. The marshal was a tall, rangy man with a lined face and sharp blue eyes that took in everything at once. He tipped his hat to me, then to Caleb. "Heard you found yourself in the middle of a mess, Hart," he drawled. "Figured I would come see if it was the kind I like cleaning up." Caleb held up the ledger. "Got a book full of names and numbers," he said. "Sheriff Mullins all over it. So's a man named Elias Grant." Avery took the ledger, flipping through the pages. His brows rose. "Well now," he murmured, "is not this interesting?" He snapped it shut, tucking it into his coat. "This is enough to bring some heat down," he said. "May not be simple. Men like this always try to wriggle free, but it is enough to start." "What about my father?" I blurted. "Elias wanted our land. I am afraid he will take it out on him." Avery's gaze softened slightly. "I will ride out to your place," he said. "Talk to your old man. Make sure he knows what is coming and where to stand. Once I have got the sheriff and Grant in a room, with this ledger in my hand and a few good men at my back, they will realize their world got smaller." "And if they do not?" Caleb asked. "Then they will push back and make mistakes," Avery replied. "And when they do, I will be there." It was not an immediate, fairy tale solution. It was slower, messier, but it was real. "Am I free?" I asked quietly. "Can I go into town without Elias claiming I am his?" Avery looked at me like he was seeing more than just the mud-stained dress and the worry in my eyes. "You were never his," he said firmly, "but I know what you mean. Give me a few weeks. I will set things in motion, start tugging at these threads. In the meantime, you stay put somewhere safe. Man like Hart here knows how to keep trouble outside his fence." Caleb squeezed my hand gently. "We were thinking that," he said, "about staying put." Avery's gaze flicked between us, something like amusement in his eyes. "I figured," he said. "You look like two people who have already decided what you are to each other, whether the law's caught up or not." Heat flooded my cheeks, but I lifted my chin. "We have," I said. "We are together now." Caleb's thumb brushed the back of my hand, slow and sure. "Reckon you earned that," Avery said. "Standing up to men like Grant takes more than a gun, takes guts." He swung back into the saddle. "I will be in touch," he said. "Do not worry if it takes time. Sometimes justice walks, does not run. But it usually gets where it is going, one way or another." He rode off, dust rising in his wake, leaving silence and sunlight behind. For a long moment, Caleb and I just stood there on the porch, listening to the creak of the house settling, the quiet snort of horses in the corral, the distant chatter of birds in the cottonwoods. "What now?" I asked softly. He turned to me, really turned, facing me squarely. "Now," he said, "we build something that is ours." I blinked. "Ours?" He nodded. "You asked me, the night you first slept in my bed, while I sat by the door, if I always stood between other people and danger," he said. "I told you it is the only place I know how to stand. I would like, if you will let me, to stand there for you, not just for now, for as long as you want me." My chest felt too full. Marshal Avery arrived 3 days later. By then, Caleb's arm was stitched and wrapped, thanks to my shaking hands and his calm instructions by lamplight. The storm had passed, leaving the land smelling new. Elias and his men had not come back up the lane, but the tension in the air stayed thick as summer heat. We heard Avery before we saw him, the steady, unhurried rhythm of his horse, the faint jingle of gear. No rush, no bravado, just a man used to walking into dangerous rooms, like he had all the time in the world. Caleb stepped onto the porch, me at his side. His hand brushed mine once. Silent question. I laced my fingers with his. Answer clear. The marshal was a tall, rangy man with a lined face and sharp blue eyes that took in everything at once. He tipped his hat to me, then to Caleb. "Heard you found yourself in the middle of a mess, Hart," he drawled. "Figured I would come see if it was the kind I like cleaning up." Caleb held up the ledger. "Got a book full of names and numbers," he said. "Sheriff Mullins all over it. So's man named Elias Grant." Avery took the ledger, flipping through the pages. His brows rose. "Well now," he murmured, "is not this interesting?" He snapped it shut, tucking it into his coat. "This is enough to bring some heat down," he said. "May not be simple. Men like this always try to wriggle free, but it is enough to start." "What about my father?" I blurted. "Elias wanted our land. I am afraid he will take it out on him." Avery's gaze softened slightly. "I will ride out to your place," he said. "Talk to your old man. Make sure he knows what is coming and where to stand. Once I have got the sheriff and Grant in a room, with this ledger in my hand and a few good men at my back, they will realize their world got smaller." "And if they do not?" Caleb asked. "Then they will push back and make mistakes," Avery replied. "And when they do, I will be there." It was not an immediate, fairy tale solution. It was slower, messier, but it was real. "Am I free?" I asked quietly. "Can I go into town without Elias claiming I am his?" Avery looked at me like he was seeing more than just the mud-stained dress and the worry in my eyes. "You were never his," he said firmly, "but I know what you mean. Give me a few weeks." I will set things in motion, start tugging at these threads. In the meantime, you stay put somewhere safe. Man like heart here knows how to keep trouble outside his fence. Caleb squeezed my hand gently. We were thinking that, he said, about staying put. Avery's gaze flicked between us, something like amusement in his eyes. I figured, he said. You look like two people who have already decided what you are to each other, whether the law's caught up or not. Heat flooded my cheeks, but I lifted my chin. We have, I said. We are together now. Caleb's thumb brushed the back of my hand, slow and sure. Reckon you earned that, Avery said. Standing up to men like Grant takes more than a gun, takes guts. He swung back into the saddle. I will be in touch, he said. Do not worry if it takes time. Sometimes justice walks, does not run. But it usually gets where it is going. One way or another, he rode off, dust rising in his wake, leaving silence and sunlight behind. For a long moment, Caleb and I just stood there on the porch, listening to the creak of the house settling, the quiet snort of horses in the corral, the distant chatter of birds in the cottonwoods. What now? I asked softly. He turned to me, really turned, facing me squarely. Now, he said, we build something that is ours. I blinked. Ours? He nodded. You asked me, the night you first slept in my bed, while I sat by the door, if I always stood between other people and danger, he said. I told you, it is the only place I know how to stand. I would like, if you will let me, to stand there for you, not just for now, for as long as you want me. My chest felt too full. And we were home.